Vince Gill. With 21 awards, Gill has more Grammy wins than any other male country artist. In the 90s, he won at least one trophy every year.
His death killed me, but his life inspired me.
For over 4 decades, Vince Gill has been the gentle voice and soulful heart of country music, a man whose songs carried both joy and heartbreak in equal measure. From heartfelt ballads like Go Rest High on That Mountain to the tender harmonies he shared with his wife, Amy Grant, Vince became more than just a musician. He became the emotional conscience of an entire genre. But behind the smooth voice and the warm smile lies a story so tragic, so deeply personal, that many fans never truly knew the pain Vince has endured. Throughout his career, Gill has faced moments of unimaginable loss, the kind of heartbreak that no fame, no fortune, and no standing ovation could ever heal. His music often spoke of love, faith, and redemption, but those themes came from real-life suffering, from losing loved ones, facing betrayal, and carrying guilt that haunted him for years. Even at the height of his fame, Vince struggled with the weight of grief and regret that shaped his songs and his soul. He sang not just for applause, but to survive, to release the emotions that might otherwise have consumed him. Today, fans are learning just how much pain lay behind that kind voice and gentle spirit. The tragedy of Vince Gill isn't just in what he's lost. It's in how he turned that loss into music that still brings millions to tears. Before Vince Gill became a country music legend, before the awards, the stadium tours, and the standing ovations, there was just a small-town boy from Norman, Oklahoma, with a broken heart and a guitar in his hands. Born on April 12, 1957, Vince grew up in a modest home where music wasn't just background noise, it was a way of life. His father, J. Stanley Gill, worked as a judge by day but loved playing country tunes and bluegrass melodies by night. It was through his father that Vince first discovered the power of music, not just to entertain, but to heal. Vince's childhood was filled with music, but it wasn't without pain. His parents' marriage was troubled, and when they eventually divorced, Vince's world was shaken. The once happy home became silent and divided. For a young boy who valued love and family above everything, this was his first real heartbreak. Yet, in that heartbreak, he found his first muse. The loneliness pushed him deeper into his guitar and songwriting. Music became his voice when words weren't enough. By the time he was a teenager, Vince was already showing signs of genius. He could play the banjo, mandolin, guitar, fiddle, and dobro, instruments that most professionals took years to master. His voice carried warmth and sincerity, something audiences connected to immediately. But while his peers were chasing dreams of fame, Vince was chasing something else: peace. Music wasn't about glory. It was about surviving. Then tragedy struck in a way that would define the rest of his life. Vince's older brother Bob, whom he deeply admired, died in a devastating car accident. The loss was shattering. Bob had been Vince's role model, the person who encouraged him to keep playing and never give up. When that light went out, Vince fell into one of the darkest periods of his life. He later said in interviews that he often felt lost, angry, and guilty, wondering if he could have done anything differently. It would take years for him to put that grief into words. And when he finally did, it came out through one of his most beautiful and emotional songs, Go Rest High on That Mountain. The song wasn't just a tribute to Bob. It was a message to anyone who had ever lost someone they loved. Every lyric carried raw emotion. Every note felt like a tear falling into eternity. Fans could feel the pain behind his voice because it was real. Vince didn't sing about heartbreak. He lived it. But before the world heard that song, Vince's road to success was long and difficult. After finishing school, he joined several struggling bluegrass bands, performing anywhere that would take him. The pay was meager, the travel exhausting, but Vince never quit. He had a quiet belief that music was his purpose, even if no one else saw it yet. In the late 1970s, fate intervened when he joined Pure Prairie League, a soft rock band that gave him his first taste of national recognition. With his silky voice leading their hit song, Let Me Love You Tonight, Vince finally broke through. But even as success found him, that sense of emptiness never went away. He often said that he could be in front of thousands of cheering fans and still feel completely alone. Those who knew him during that time said he was kind, humble, and deeply introspective, a man who never let fame change him. But behind his gentle smile was a man still haunted by memories of his brother and the broken home he left behind. Every song he wrote seemed to carry a hidden message to those he'd lost. By the time Vince set out on his solo career, he had already lived through more heartbreak than most people could imagine. And as the next chapters of his life unfolded, it became clear that while the world saw him as a star, Vince Gill would always see himself as just a man trying to make sense of life's hardest lessons, one song at a time. As Vince Gill's talent began to capture the attention of Nashville's music industry, the boy from Oklahoma found himself thrust into a world he had only dreamed of. The late 1980s and early 1990s marked the beginning of Vince's rise to stardom. With his warm, honeyed voice and emotional storytelling, he quickly became one of country music's most beloved figures. But as his fame soared, his personal life grew increasingly complicated and heartbreaking. At first glance, it seemed like Vince had it all. Hit songs filled the radio, awards decorated his shelves, and his gentle smile became a familiar sight on television. Yet behind that success was a man struggling to balance his growing fame with his private life. He married singer Janice Oliver, one half of the Sweethearts of the Rodeo Duo, in 1980. The two shared a deep love for music, but as Vince's career accelerated, the pressures of life on the road began to take their toll. Vince's demanding schedule often kept him away from home for weeks at a time. He was performing across the country, pouring his soul into music, but the distance between him and his family grew wider. Their daughter, Jenny, was born in 1982, bringing moments of joy, but even fatherhood couldn't shield Vince from the loneliness that came with fame. The man who once longed for stability found himself chasing something that constantly pulled him away from it. By the mid-1990s, Vince's career had reached staggering heights. He was winning Grammy Awards, selling millions of albums, and collaborating with legends. Songs like I Still Believe in You and Whenever You Come Around became timeless classics. But success, as he would later admit, came at a heavy emotional price. His marriage began to crumble under the weight of his schedule and fame. Both he and Janice were musicians, both living lives filled with travel, late nights, and creative differences. Eventually, their relationship couldn't survive the strain, and in 1998, they divorced after nearly 2 decades together. The split was devastating for Vince. He carried deep guilt, feeling that he had failed to keep his family together, something that echoed the pain of his own parents' separation years earlier. He spoke candidly about how fame often feels like a double-edged sword, giving everything professionally, but taking everything personally. It was during this period that Vince's music became even more emotional. He began writing from a place of raw honesty, channeling his sorrow into songs that touched millions. Just when it seemed like life had broken him once again, fate intervened. In the late 1990s, Vince met Christian pop singer Amy Grant. Both were coming out of difficult marriages and carried their own emotional wounds. Their connection was instant, built not on fame or glamour, but on shared pain and faith. Amy once said that when she first met Vince, she saw a sadness in his eyes that she understood all too well. Their relationship, however, wasn't free from controversy. Critics and tabloids speculated endlessly about their timing, accusing them of beginning their romance before their divorces were finalized. The public scrutiny was harsh, but through it all, Vince and Amy stood firm, choosing to focus on healing rather than headlines. In 2000, they married in a small, emotional ceremony surrounded by their children. For Vince, it was a moment of renewal, a chance to rebuild the family life he had long dreamed of. Yet even in happiness, he never forgot the pain that had brought him there. The heartbreaks of his past continued to shape the songs he wrote. From themes of forgiveness to redemption, his music reflected a man who had loved deeply, lost painfully, and still believed in grace. Behind every smile Vince showed the world, there was a story of resilience, of a man who had walked through fire and still managed to sing with a heart full of hope. His rise to fame had come with tragedy, but his ability to turn pain into beauty was what truly defined him. By the early 2000s, Vince Gill had reached the kind of success most artists only dream about. His name was etched into the history of country music with dozens of awards, collaborations, and timeless songs that had captured the hearts of millions. Yet, even as his professional life shined brighter than ever, the shadows of his past continued to follow him. Behind the calm, smiling man who often appeared on stage was someone who still carried the pain of loss, a man who used his music not for fame, but for survival. The most defining example of that came through a song that would change his career and his life forever. "Go Rest High on That Mountain." Though Vince began writing the song years earlier after the death of country star Keith Whitley, it remained unfinished. The emotions were simply too raw. It wasn't until his brother Bob's tragic death in a car accident that Vince finally returned to it. The lyrics came pouring out, each word soaked in grief, love, and longing. When the song was finally released in 1994, it became more than just a country hit. It became a universal anthem of mourning. Fans from around the world reached out to Vince, sharing how the song helped them cope with their own losses. Funerals, memorials, and tributes across generations played that same haunting melody, turning Vince's personal pain into a gift of comfort for millions. But for Vince, performing "Go Rest High on That Mountain" was never easy. Even years later, he admitted that he could barely get through it without tears. Every time he sang those words, it felt like reliving his brother's passing all over again. And yet, he kept singing it, not out of obligation, but because he knew it helped others heal, just as it had helped him. Still, tragedy continued to touch his life in quiet but painful ways. In interviews, Vince spoke about struggling with guilt, the feeling that no matter how much success he achieved, there were people he could never bring back. When his father passed away in 1993, Vince was again reminded of how fragile life could be. Though their relationship had been complex, his father's influence on his music and his work ethic was undeniable. Losing him reopened old wounds and forced Vince to confront grief all over again. During this time, Amy Grant became not only his partner but also his emotional anchor. Their shared faith played a crucial role in his healing. Together, they built a home that wasn't defined by fame but by peace and understanding. Vince often credited Amy with teaching him how to find joy again after years of emotional struggle. She encouraged him to express himself freely, both as an artist and as a man who had seen the darker sides of life. Even so, the pressure of maintaining his public image weighed heavily. Vince was always known for being kind, humble, and gracious, but few realized how hard he worked to stay that way while battling inner sadness. Friends described him as the guy who made everyone else laugh while quietly carrying the world on his shoulders. As the years went by, Vince continued to release deeply emotional songs that reflected his personal journey. Tracks like "Threaten Me with Heaven" and "When My Amy Prays" captured both his pain and his faith. His performances weren't just concerts. They were confessions. Every lyric was a chapter of his life, every note a message to those he had lost. The public adored him for it. Unlike many stars who tried to hide their scars, Vince let the world see his. And in doing so, he became a rare kind of artist, one who didn't just sing about heartbreak, but lived it, survived it, and turned it into something beautiful. By the time the 2010s arrived, Vince Gill was more than just a musician. He was a storyteller, a survivor, and a man who had found healing through pain. Yet his fans would soon learn, even with all he had overcome, more challenges still awaited him. Tests that would once again remind the world why Vince Gill's story is as heartbreaking as it is inspiring. As the years have passed, Vince Gill has gracefully transitioned from country superstar to living legend, a man admired not only for his voice but for his heart. Yet, behind the awards, the tributes, and the glowing smiles lies a story still marked by heartache and resilience. The tragedies that once threatened to break him instead shaped the man he became, humble, reflective, and endlessly compassionate. Even today, his life serves as a poignant reminder that the human spirit can rise above even the deepest pain. In recent years, Vince's focus has shifted away from chart-topping hits and industry recognition. Instead, he has found solace in smaller, more meaningful performances, playing in churches, intimate venues, and charity events where the emotional connection feels stronger than ever. He once said, "The older I get, the more I realize music isn't about fame, it's about healing." For Vince, healing has always been the quiet thread that runs through every part of his life. Still, the tragedies have continued to echo through time. The death of his longtime friend and collaborator, country legend George Jones, in 2013 hit Vince hard. He performed a tearful tribute during Jones's funeral, his voice cracking as he sang, "Go rest high on that mountain." The performance left the audience in tears, a raw, heartbreaking reminder of how deeply Vince feels the pain of those he loves. For him, the song that began as a tribute to his brother has become a universal farewell, a musical prayer for all the souls he's lost along the way. Despite the heartbreak, Vince has found strength in his faith and his family. His marriage to Amy Grant has endured for over 2 decades, and together they have built a blended family filled with love, understanding, and spiritual grounding. When Amy suffered a near-fatal bike accident in 2022, Vince became her rock, caring for her through recovery and standing by her side every step of the way. Fans watched as the man who had endured so much pain in his life once again displayed the compassion that defines him. Even through the challenges of aging and the changing music industry, Vince remains deeply connected to his craft. He has said that songwriting still feels sacred, a way to make sense of the world when words alone aren't enough. His recent performances with the Eagles have introduced his timeless voice to a new generation of fans, proving that true talent never fades. But what continues to move audiences most is not his fame, but his humanity. Vince doesn't pretend to be perfect. He openly acknowledges his flaws, his regrets, and his moments of doubt. That honesty has made him one of the most respected and loved figures in modern music. Privately, Vince has admitted that he sometimes reflects on his life with both pride and sorrow. The boy who once strummed a guitar in Oklahoma never imagined he'd one day be inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Yet, for all the success, what he cherishes most are the simple moments. Time with his family, the laughter of his grandchildren, and the quiet evenings when he can sit with a guitar and play for no one but himself. Those close to him say that Vince still carries the memory of his brother, his father, and his lost friends in everything he does. When he steps on stage, it's as if they're still there beside him. Every performance is a tribute, not to fame, but to love, loss, and endurance. That's what makes Vince Gill so unique. His ability to take life's hardest blows and turn them into something that heals others. As Vince continues to age gracefully, his story remains one of the most emotional in country music history, not because of his success, but because of the pain he's turned into art. The tragedy of Vince Gill isn't just about the sorrow he's endured, but about how he has faced it, with kindness, grace, and a voice that continues to remind us all that beauty can rise from even the deepest heartbreak. In the end, his life is proof that pain doesn't have to destroy you. It can shape you, soften you, and if you let it, turn your wounds into songs that last forever. Vince Gill's legacy will never fade, because his story isn't just about tragedy, it's about love that refuses to die, and faith that continues to carry him through every note, every tear, and every mountain he still climbs.